Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Pleased to be joined by another lifetime Longhorn, the young prodigy CJ Vogel, and my esteemed colleague and good friend Jeff Howe. We are all excited. Of course, spring football is fast approaching. We want to talk about things that we would like to hear. All right, things that all of us individually, what we'd like to hear. Hopefully, optimistic news coming out of the spring for the Longhorns. This can be about personnel. It can be about the scheme. It can be about new additions to the team as well, coaches and players. Guys, it's wide open. We'll start on the offensive side of things and talk about what you would most like to hear at the start of this spring. Jeff, I'll open it up to you first.
I want to hear that the offensive line is competing against the defensive line. I don't need to hear like we heard, not so much last spring, but really last camp when we heard some of those scrimmages where, hey, yeah, it was a really tough day for the offense to get going. And you're thinking, well, maybe this defensive line is really good. And there were times where your defensive front was really good. But in hindsight, it really should have been a red flag about where the offensive line was. So, look, there's going to be some give and take. But I really want to hear about, hey, there are days where the offensive line was really able to run the ball and not on days where – it felt like for all intents and purposes, Sark had to call off the dogs. Like, really want to see this offensive line. And look, you're going to be a little shorthanded with Trevor Goosby coming off the surgery. You don't have Lawrence Seymour, but hey, look, Jaden Chapman's been around here for a minute, and he's gone against a lot of these guys in practice. And, Melvin Siani is a really talented guy, and Connor Robertson's experience. So you've got enough pieces. Brandon Baker kicking inside. You've got enough pieces to where you shouldn't be overwhelmed going against the defense. So I want to hear that the O-line's holding their own.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. CJ, what about you? What are you hoping to hear to start out the spring year?
Yeah, I think in a similar breath, right, we all want to hear about the running game and the new running backs. I'm actually going to go a different direction. Texas, we know we'll have three guys at that wide receiver spot that are very talented, have a lot of production. Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley. We saw what two of them can do on every Saturday a year ago. You add in Cam Coleman, who's one of the best, if not the very best in all of college football at the position. But who's going to be your fourth guy? I think that's going to be really intriguing. You bring in Sterling Burkhalter, Khalil Lockett's going into year two, Dalen McCutcheon's going into year two, and then, of course, a Cohen Brown or Jermaine Bishop. You have a lot of different skill sets that are all kind of vying for that same fourth or fifth spot in the lineup. Look, we know Arch is going to continue to build with Emmett Mosley and Ryan Wingo. There's no doubt that we expect Cam Coleman to be, if not that number one guy, very close to it by the end of spring. But who can chip away at growing that circle of trust that we talk about basically every year with the Sarkisian and the wide receivers? That's going to be very, very intriguing to me. It's going to be a battle that I'm going to have my eye on almost from the very get-go in spring football.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good. I think I'm interested to see the theme of explosive plays come back into the offense overall. I do want to hear about big plays. Now, I know some of that is at the expense of the D, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I mean, that's what you were missing most in the Sark formula last season. There are a lot of things that we want Sark to be better at in terms of special situations and critical situations, third down, red zone. We've talked, obviously, penalties, talked about that area. But I think in order for you to be able to, if you're Sark, be able to almost erase a lot of those mistakes, because I know some of them are still going to be prevalent in the Sark offense, whether you're talking about, hopefully it's not penalties, but maybe it's red zone or third down. The big plays have to come back. And you got the players to do it now. So I do want to hear that Sark they're back to generating explosive plays. You weren't that last season, and the last two seasons prior to that, 24 and 23. I mean, you're one of the top 10 most explosive offenses in the country. That, I think, is what Sark wants to get back to. Part of that's on the ground. Part of that's obviously through the air. And I know you're not going to be showcasing Arch Manning this spring, but it'd be nice to hear that when he's in there working with the guys, or even if it's KJ Lacey, that one of the traits of this offense is big plays, baby, explosive plays.
Yeah, just real quick on that, Rod. Like, you and I talked about it on Football Theory with the explosive plays, but along those same lines, I want to see more down-to-down consistency, right? Like, there were times last year, and I know the offense early on where you had your offensive line issues and Arch was trying to get his feet underneath him. So, I mean, there were reasons why the offense didn't click, but I felt like there was a point early in the year, too, where Sark kind of fell back into that old bad habit of just hunting shot plays. Well, if you're trying to play complementary football, now you're putting your defense in a bind because you may get the big play, you may also go 3 and out pretty quick because you put yourself behind the chains. So for lack of a better way of me saying it, like I want to hear about the explosive plays just happening more organically, where like Sark is scheming guys open and guys are making plays after the catch. It's great if Arch is just throwing deep balls to Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo. Like, that's awesome. I'm not going to be mad at that, but I think it's more beneficial for this offense if, hey, that you can call a screen pass or an RPO glance and that guy can take it to the house just because he's a great athlete. Not that you're forcing the issue with it. It's going to make you a better down to down offense. So down to down consistency is something that I want to see from Sark too.
Yeah, I like that, especially when you get towards the red area, right? It's one thing, and we saw Texas certainly progress in 2025, especially with the inclusion of Archer's legs. But if you can keep kind of chipping away on first and second downs so that you're not in 3rd and 20, or if you're not losing yards in that situation when you're about to put points on the board, that's more to what I'm envisioning more consistency as well.
Yeah, and to CJ's point, Rod, like sequencing is something that I've been hammered on Sark for, especially in the red zone, where you'll have it may be like a 4-down territory, but you may have one of those players like, dude, what the heck was that? Like you haven't run that all year, or you ran it totally different than when you had success with it. So yeah, to CJ's point, I think the red zone is really where those issues with the sequencing and the hunting shot plays, like I think that's where it catches up with you is in the red zone.
Yeah, it'd be nice to hear also that part of this that Cam Coleman is now kind of a weapon in the red zone, considering his frame and size and ability and contested catch ability, all that kind of stuff. That'd be nice to hear. All right, let's dive into some individuals who we want to hear are obviously stepping up, separating themselves this spring. Starting with you, CJ, individuals specifically, and you can kind of obviously tie that to a concept, a scheme, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, look, I'm actually going to go a pretty different route here. I'm going Michael Masunas at tight end, and I might even include Nick Townsend in the conversation. Look, I think you feel great on paper about the entire offense. Granted, we get the eligibility for Lawrence Seymour, and that's kind of what your offensive line will look like with him on it at left guard. The one spot that, granted, you don't really have an all-conference level player at is tight end. And again, we're all excited about Nick Townsend, but Michael Masunas' MO at Michigan State was, I love to block. I love to be in the trenches and move and be physical and displace opponents. And that's basically what he's gone on record several times saying. So for me, when I look at the Texas tight end, especially with Arch Manning, you don't need to be a 500 to 600 yard receiving option with Arch. Arch has proven his check down isn't the tight end. It's not the running back. It's his legs, right? He will use his legs and get the yards by himself if need be. That wasn't the case with Quinn. Quinn needed a Jatavian Sanders. He needed a Gunnar Helm to catch the ball in the flats and then create plays when read 1 and 2 were not there. So for Masunas, you just got to be a viable option. You don't have to be otherworldly. You don't have to be all conference. If you can show me that you can get 5 to 6 yards on check down, that's all I need to see. But I have to see that you're someone that can be a difference maker in the run game, because 11 personnel will never go away for Texas.
Yeah, Rod, you bring it back all the time, and I kind of get tired of hearing it. The Sark says, "Hey, other than quarterback, tight end is the most important position on offense." Well, CJ took my guy because we did our OTF sideline debate piece that ran on the site on Friday, and Michael Masunas was my X factor, and I pointed out. I'm not going to repeat everything CJ said, but I pointed out in there. Look, the Texas run game had a different feel to it when you had guys like Jeff Swaim and Andrew Beck who were blockers first and prided themselves on bringing a physical edge. So yeah, Masunas is one, but just to pick somebody different from CJ, I'll go Brandon Baker. Like I feel confident he's going to make that transition successfully to guard, but I don't know, maybe it's just the uncertainty at that position. I just feel a little uneasy about it compared to like uncertainty at wide receiver where you kind of think they'll figure it out, or running back where you think they'll figure it out. I'm not going to feel certain about anything with the offensive line until I have a reason to. So at Brandon Baker move, especially with Seymour not eligible, not around for the spring. The Brandon Baker move needs to be one that works really well for this offense.
I like that.
Yep, that's good. Now, because it feels like, I don't know, just reading just the tea leaves and psychoanalyzing some of the things Sark was saying at the media availability, they do kind of want to get back to being able to have the outside zone as their kind of bread and butter, which means that really athletic offensive line that they're building with, tackles that they're bumping inside, and then the tight ends that you guys brought up too. I mean, Nick Townsend, as soon as, if those guys are really good at setting the edge or that cross block that they bring Nick Townsend on all the time, they can perfect those elements of the offense. It'll get back to that 2024 season where you were just top 10 in your outside zone run rate, but you were really, really good at it. It's just a few times that season where you got stopped, where a team was able to neutralize that outside zone run. It didn't have a changeup. It didn't have another staple run concept you could lean on. I think they want that to be outside zone, inside zone, and duo, basically. And we'll see if they can pull that off. They do want a power element to the run game. Maybe it is the tight ends they're bringing in with Masunas and Nick Townsend, because they're kind of a different breed. Something else I want to hear, though, individuals about. I do want to hear that these guys, the new weapons they brought in, and this includes Cam Coleman, that they're being utilized differently and they're being weaponized differently in Sark's offense as opposed to the rudimentary way that they were being utilized in the Auburn offense, right? He was in the slot, I think, less than 10% of the time versus, in Auburn's offense, in Sark's offense, that number I'm sure is going to jump to maybe 20% of the time, or even more, right? Not a lot of targets to motion for him, but he'll get plenty of those potentially in a Sark offense. Sark is easy at scheming open, kind of easy yak opportunities. He doesn't have a lot of yak in his history.
Great
but
point.
to Jeff's point, yak is a really, I think, one of the X factors in Sark's offense, because he schemes open kind of the run to daylight philosophy. So there's talk that, hey, Cam Coleman, man, he's faster than he looks out there. Well, I think he's going to look faster in Sark's offense because he's going to get more opportunities to run in space. And I think you're going to get a lot of switch concepts with him, 3x1 sets, him on one side, trips on the other side. You can either roll coverage and double team him, or you can lose the numbers battle on the trip side, right? Simple schematic adjustments. And I just want to hear that, or at least advantages that he's going to have as a player. It includes Raleigh Brown and Hollywood Smothers that they didn't have in their previous offenses that are going to really showcase their talents. I want to hear some of that as well, that, oh man, this offense for this particular player is going to really soup up their X-Man abilities or traits.
Yeah, from that standpoint, there's two guys. I think one you mentioned, and Rod Hollywood Smothers. I just felt like NC State left a little meat on the bone with him as a receiver. I just think there's something Sark can really tap into there that hasn't been. And to your point about having a counterpunch when teams shut down the outside zone or defend it well, I probably haven't. I'm not putting this on anybody but me. I probably haven't talked enough about Derek Cooper's potential impact. Especially because he doesn't have to come in to be the guy. He can come in and be a guy. And his role could be, hey, we just need you to be a really good inside zone runner. Like, just thump between the tackles, just be physical, be you. Like, you don't have to come in and rush for 1,000 yards. So, Hollywood Smothers a little bit, but Derek Cooper's another guy that I want to hear about, just what his role is and how they're working him into the offense.
In a larger picture, if Texas, and we do hear this is, kind of team on team, best on best. If we do hear that Texas is able to run the football effectively this spring, that is massive for this offense. Because look, you're going to be working with, in a way, a makeshift offensive line, right? You're not necessarily going to have a healthy Trevor Gooseby for all of it. Lawrence Seymour will be joining in the summer. You're going to be doing it with guys that are, for the most part, unproven, right? Jordan Coleman, we expect Jaden Chapman, Dylan Sikorsky coming in. He'll factor into the position as well. But if you're able to run the football effectively, that tells you that, one, your running backs are either very talented, or two, they've pieced together something on that offensive line, because we know how talented that defense is.
Yeah. Especially
that front seven with the speed at linebacker and the beef on the interior. If you're able to have some big chunk plays of some explosive runs out of that offensive line and running game, that is huge for what the ceiling of this team could be offensively.
Yeah, no, it's a good point about that too, because one of the things this defense I think they're going to be really good at is stopping the run.
Yeah.
Overall, just kind of looking at some of the pieces that they've assembled, especially bringing in Ian Jafrod. I think Hero Kanu is going to be better. I think they'll be better in the interior with Alex January, those guys being older. And then, of course, bringing in Rasheem Biles, look at his run stop rate. I mean, he's one of the best run stuffing linebackers in college football. All right. So I'm with you on that. Good stuff there, guys. Any last comments, any closing comments here about our conversation on the offense, about things that we want to hear this spring? I'll start with you, Jeff, to end things.
The last comment I'll make, I just want Arch to get to the opener. Just keep him in bubble wrap. Just let him get his work in and get him out. I don't need to hear a ton about Arch this spring. I just want him to get to the opener healthy.
I was going to say that exact same sentiment. Look, he's in a position to reset the Texas single season passing record with the way that this team is constructed. If the pass protection is there, as long as he is healthy, I'm expecting a massive year statistically for Arch and for Texas offensively. I think it has the makings to be Sark's best offense at Texas.
Yep, and Sark has talked about how they started the culture building earlier this time. Something else we also all want to hear is that the team is getting closer, the chemistry, all right, that the culture is already starting to show itself because they started that culture building a little bit early, and the leadership on the team is also starting to assert itself. That'd be good to hear early on in the spring. All right, great stuff, gentlemen. Thank you guys out there for watching and for listening. We'll be talking about defense a little bit later on. For CJ and for Jeff, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.